So, I'm here to talk to you about my gadgets and my house. So, in preparing for this presentation today, I had two versions of an introduction. Both of them are pretty personal. One of them is an honest statement, Plan A, and Plan B is more of a confession. Now, because I thought of Plan A first, I'm going to go with that one. And that's a simple quote from Adriana Lima that says, if you're nervous, that means you care, and you want to give it your best. So in all honesty to all of you, I'm saying I've never, ever cared so much in my life, honestly. I really, really care. But anyway, yes, next. My name is Balazs, as Martin introduced me. I'm a 1337 Ninja interface developer at the Lund office, occasionally popping over to Stockholm for a conference or such. But the very first time I was here was actually with my wife back in 2007. Has any of you done couch surfing? Oh, I actually thought it would be closer to zero, but there are some people who have done couch surfing. Cool. So we couch surfed here back in 2007 as a sort of a spy operation to find out if we like Sweden. We lived with a family for a couple of days, get to know, Stockholm a little bit, and then go back and decide if we want to come here for a longer period, possibly permanently. And obviously we're like, no way, Sweden? Pfft, get out of here. No, I'm kidding, we moved here. We went home, we packed up, sold half of our things, the other half was important, we took that with us, and we're here ever since. Yes. Earlier this year, I happened to be actually in this very building, listening to another conference, where this guy passed me. Now, little did I know while I was sitting right there that he was so close to me. I was very focused on, he's coming up, oh my God, he's coming up, and he didn't even look to my right where he was passing me. Also, little did I know when I was sitting at that conference that very day that I'll be standing in front of you not even a year later. So pretty freaky stuff happens in life, seriously. But enough about me, let's talk about me and my house and my personal journey into creating a smart home. This talk is going to be sort of a combination of personal experiences in trying to put things together and also a reflection on the industry as it was developing while I was trying to figure it out myself. I was planning to do a rather techie talk, but considering that we are rather different in interests, even if it's development, most of us are developers here. I thought I'll keep it a bit higher level, sort of from a perspective of someone who loves technology, but is more in the role of a consumer. So that's the perspective I'm trying to give you today. A tech-knowledgeable consumer. Who has IoT gadgets in their house, connected devices? And I don't mean laptops and iPads, I mean, real stuff. A lot of you. Who has actually worked on such things, created as a hobby or professionally? Oh, professionally more hands than a hobby. Interesting. Cool. So my presentation will be in 4 parts. Part 1 will talk about connecting things. That will lead to problems with interfaces. So part 2, I'll talk about interfaces. That will lead to me being fed up with interfaces, wanting to automate stuff. So part 3 will be obviously automation, and part 4 I'll be fed up with creating rules for my automation. So I want to use machine learning to turn data from things into things that do things by themselves without me telling them what to do. Connect everything. So my story of home automation basically started with, please load. Yes. With this beautiful light bulb back in 2012 that I fell in love with pretty much instantly, and now we'll find out if I have audio. Audio? Should I get the cable, maybe?
Hi, I'm Phil Boshua, one of the co-creators of Scambox, and I want to introduce you to my new Kickstarter project. I was thinking one day that the light bulb is amazing. It's probably one of the greatest inventions of all time, but it hasn't really changed much in the last 100 years. Switch on, light goes on. Switch off, light goes off. Not to mention how annoying it is when they blow. These traditional bulbs also use heaps of power, and those energy-efficient fluoro globes have that cold white light that we all hate. So I started thinking, with all the technology we've got these days, surely there must be a better way. I mean, for starters, it's not like we get up to change the TV channel anymore, so why do we still do that with our lights?
You're just literally typing in
Well,
colour,
6 months
and that's going through your home network.
and more than a dozen prototypes later, we've managed to create the world's smartest energy-efficient light bulb. We call it LifeX. LifeX is an energy-efficient multicolour LED bulb that's controlled by your smartphone.
This sentence, I was sold. I was like, take my money, thank you, I'm in, give it to me now. Now about giving it to me now, it was a Kickstarter project, and most of you probably know how Kickstarter projects go. You give the money now, and then you get the thing later, maybe did something happen? Much later, hopefully when they predict, but usually not at that time even. So I couldn't really wait. I opened my wallet to gadgets, and so came another, because this one was actually available earlier, and then another because I wanted to control the other things, and then I wanted to get the weather for my own terrace and indoors and air quality level, and I wanted to know, I wanted to connect my scale, and it was just, unstoppable. I opened Pandora's digital box, and things just kept coming out that I wanted. So, yeah, the cool thing about these was obviously that I didn't need to rewire my house like back in the old days of trying to automate and connect things. You just unscrewed one light bulb and put in the other, and you were done. Put it on the shelf, plug it in, and everything was working. Now you might ask, how did I have all this support from my family to sponsor all these gadgets? I didn't. But luckily I was a freelancer, and as such I could have my own R&D department. And until my accountant said otherwise, I could spend money, wisely on my R&D department to investigate these future products, right? And so I did. And the hype lasted quite a while. My son was super excited. He's screaming, party, party, party in Hungarian, looking at the lights blinking. I was completely blown away. My wife was semi-impressed. She liked the mood lights that I could create, but otherwise, yeah, apps, great. But I was completely blown away by being able to control physical objects finally with the touch of a button on my smartphone. I could see graphs of my weight. Well, great, but still, you'll get to understand things as you use them more and more. I could see the weather on my terrace, which sometimes was useful because it didn't actually align with the local weather reported. It was warmer on my terrace. The sun was shining there, whereas the station that was in Malmö officially was showing something completely different. So I did enjoy these things until they started doing weird things just because they could, right? Like putting the weather into my scale. Yeah. So here I am in the morning, I'm wondering how many kilos because I had such a nasty dinner last night. It's gonna rain. Okay. And the problem with this was because it's a simple, very simple interface, all they could do is, well, in the beginning, show if it was raining or not. And it didn't care which part of the day it was raining. It was raining in the middle of the night. And it showed me it was raining. So I went outside and it was blue skies and sunshine all day. They were correct, but completely useless information in my case, right? And they didn't stop there, obviously. Things kept going on. People started putting chips into everything possible just because they could. Hence, somebody coined the term Internet of Shitty Things. You've probably heard of that, right? And hence, blogs like this appeared on Tumblr talking about, yay, we put a chip on it like this cat fountain that will tell you your cat's water consumption. Really? I mean, I know humans have a problem with how much water we consume, but animals have it pretty well worked out. They haven't been ruined by, consumerism and all sorts of things. They're good with this. They know how much water to drink. And we don't really need to know either. Or this X-ray. It's connected. You can go into the shop, take out your iPhone or whatever phone, and then see how many eggs you have in your X-ray. Aren't you blown away by this stuff? I mean, and the coolest feature is that those LEDs next to the eggs, they will show you which one is the last egg that will expire sort of first. So you can take them out in the order of expiration. Pretty smart. Right. Anyway, back to my devices. So I had many devices, which led to many apps, many interfaces. Pardon me, my notes forgot to update. And many related apps. My wife's had, obviously, my wife had none of it. I don't have only one wife. Before anybody gets confused here. My wife had only none of the apps, and my kids obviously don't even have a phone, so they had no access to any of this. This is how my phone looked. And I started micromanaging my devices, obviously. There was an update going on, so I had to tell my wife, don't turn off that light right now, it's updating, wait. Or I would be playing with the lights the night before, and then my wife would be setting up for dinner. She turns on the light, and it's UV purple, and she's like, we're trying to have dinner with the kids. Could you readjust the lamp to something normal? Thank you. And there was obviously conflicts between the physical control of the lamp, which is the switch on the wall. That doesn't change, right? And my apps. She would turn off the light, and suddenly I'm like, oh, I have to get up and switch that. Or I would turn off the light with the app, and then she goes, nothing. And then it turns on. Once you toggle it, then it will switch back on. So there was a lot of friction between us, who controls what and what exactly should happen. Thus, the project was born. Thank you. My home service, software, whatever you want to call it. And obviously a beta, as any website that continuously gets development, a continuous forever beta was my project too. I started by collecting NPM modules. I'm a front-end guy, I did mention that, right? Interface developer. So I don't know much about other back-end languages. I do Node. So I started collecting NPM modules where people reverse engineered like the Lifix API or the Hughes protocol. Actually, you didn't have to do that. That was a very nice REST API they have. And collected modules so that I could build my own interface where I unite all these things. And I did, and I was very happy with it. I could control, all the different platforms, manufacturers on a single interface. I could see the weather inside and outside of my house. Very useful, but it was cool. It was built on the JavaScript framework, hottest at the time, which was AngularJS. I'm sorry, Andesh, if you're sitting here. I know you're probably itching from that word. And I did test it on real hardware. I actually got specifically a Raspberry Pi touchscreen so that I can put it on there with Chromeless Chrome, basically. And it worked very nicely, but I never actually got it to the wall. Never actually got mounted. And the reason for that is that some API changed. For example, Lifix came up with version 2, which removed their mesh network that was local, and everything was connected to the Wi-Fi suddenly. I had to talk to the cloud first. And I didn't feel like updating my stuff, so I just let it sit. Yeah, whatever. I can still use my apps, And JavaScript framework trends changed too. So instead of rebuilding my stuff or fixing my stuff from the previous version, which was AngularJS, I was like, well, I'm just going to make a new interface. Much easier, right? I'll just start from scratch with web components, because that was the latest fad when I was doing that. Web components and Polymer. I even did a presentation about that. I was so enthusiastic. So I built this interface. It was multi-touch. If you change the number of fingers you were using, you could adjust the brightness or the hue of the lamp. It was great. And again, I never actually made it to the wall, because by this time I really wanted the lamps to go on by themselves instead of me having to do all sorts of things. And I was really, really annoyed by all the changing standards. Every different device was talking a different language, different API, different schema, different protocol. So luckily, I wasn't the only one fed up with this. I'm sure many of you have seen Google I/O, right? Right? Don't scare me. So there was a very important part where my heart skipped several beats. When
you need a common language, a shared understanding, so that devices can not only talk to each other and to the cloud and to your phone.
Hallelujah.
So what we are doing is we have standardized schemas. Schemas are nothing but a semantic blueprint for all these devices to have a common language. For example, a camera can define what does it mean to say take a picture, and all devices around it can understand that. A door lock can define lock and unlock as two phrases which all other devices in that ecosystem can understand and work off each other. So we will have standardized schemas, developers can submit custom schemas, and we will have a Weave certification program to make sure anything that is Weave certified can work together. Weave is available cross-platform, so you can use this as a modular approach. You can have Brillo and Weave together, or you can run Weave on top of your existing stack. And the powerful thing is Weave exposes developer APIs in a cross-platform way. So if you're writing a recipe application on your smartphone, the actual application can now turn on your smart oven, set it to the right temperature, right? And any connected device,
So yes, I was like, this is exactly the thing I've been waiting for. I no longer have to write the other side of my home automation, actually do the automation part and connect things and make things work together. Except that you still don't have access to all this. Very few devices support it. There's an ecosystem that does, but then there's a whole that doesn't. So I was hoping that there would be something else, and listening to a couple of podcasts, I actually ran into some other solution for this. Has anybody has heard of AllJoin from the All Scene Alliance? Hey, that's pretty cool. A couple of hands. Awesome. Hey, more hands. Put your hands higher so I can actually see them. It's hard from here. All right. So AllJoin is a collaboration open source framework that makes it easy for devices to talk to each other and to discover each other. And it's local first, which many of the other solutions are not. They talk to the cloud first and then back to you. And it's kind of silly that I tell my lamp right here to turn on, and it goes out to America, probably to some cloud service, and then comes back to my lamp and turns it on, which is all good and great until, net is down or something goes south, and suddenly my lamp is like, nope, not today. Oh, well. But anyway, these guys at AllJoin started working on the same problem of things not being able to talk to each other. And I'll let her do a bit of talking now. I'm sure you've all met this problem at home.
What's interesting about AllJoin is it's not just about notifications and control. You can also start to use AllJoin to enable a common task across multiple devices that share the same signal. Let's look at setting clocks. What you're about to see in this demo is solving a problem we all have throughout the year, having to change all those clocks blinking 12 o'clock. All of these devices from different manufacturers across very different verticals have implemented the AllJoin set clock interface. The app says, what are all the devices around me right now that have set clock? Shows them, and I as the user can decide what are the devices that I want to set the clock for. With just one push of a button on that tablet, everything will change time, even though it's across 4 or 5 or even 6 different devices throughout the home. The reason that you see the clocks being changed so fast has to do with the unique topology of the AllJoin solution. There's no latency, there's no delays having to go out to the cloud to control the 10 devices that are next to you in your home.
Now I know what you're probably thinking. So it's a connected device. Why do I have to tell you what time it is? Right? Shouldn't it know that? I thought the same, but I felt that this problem we could relate to much better than all of the other complicated solutions. But I mean, you get the concept. You can do a lot with it. Sadly, none of my stuff speaks either AllJoin or Weave. And I've asked some of the manufacturers whose products I own, and they don't have any plans on doing that either. Oops, sorry about that. That wasn't my decision. I swear I'm innocent. But the next generation of devices, really sorry, next generation of devices will have either Weave or AllJoin support. So, now that we've covered a bit about interfaces, let's get to getting things automated, because that's what I really wanted after this stage. So, many of you are probably too young, but many of you might still remember those 90s home automation solutions that we were pretty amazed by. Lights would go on in a room and turn off when you leave, and all sorts of magic like that, which required you to rewire your entire house with about 15 kilometers of cables connecting every single switch and light bulb in your home, right? Luckily, we don't have this anymore. We don't need to rewire anything. We can just, as I said earlier, change something here, add a switch there, and it should work, and the wires can remain where they are. So one of the things I got for free with my gadgets is this sort of automation from If This Then That. I connected my Lifix light bulbs to it, and obviously I could turn it on when sunset and turn it off at sunrise. But the cool part was the very first rule. I was really in love with that solution. It would blink the kitchen light when I would get close to home. Now you don't see why that's cool, right? Except I have kids, And so they would know that I'm approaching the house. The kitchen light would blink twice in purple. They were sitting in the kitchen playing, and they would run to the door and greet me. I mean, goddamn, this was a good investment. My a very simple rule, and it, just touched my heart. Really awesome. But things weren't always so easy, as I mentioned earlier, because it's a cloud-connected thing. My wife would suddenly tell me, hey, the terrace light is still on, the sun is shining, what's up? And I'll take out my app again and manually adjust the light or turn it off. So back to the same old problem, many points of conflict because there's just so many dots between my thing, my gadget, and the thing that's controlling it. And also there was no error correction. I never knew if things didn't work, so I couldn't have my system send another signal to please turn it on, please turn it on, please turn it on. Okay, now it's on. And that should be an enhancement. So I started working on my own automation. This is me trying to fiddle stuff with Node. I scrapped my whole previous home solution, started from scratch, creating modules, building sort of flexible microservices for each platform that I wanted to support so that people could maybe add some later on. Defining rules, finding patterns in my life, and suddenly it was getting pretty complicated. But I wasn't giving up just yet. I started making my own devices instead, like this one for the fridge. I am responsible at home for feeding the cats at night, or before I go to bed, basically. I'm giving them dinner. Now, I'm lazy, so I open the fridge door once, take out the can, and close it, but leave an ever so slight gap, just so I don't have to pull so hard next time I'm putting the can back, right? That's just difficult. Why should I pull so hard twice? Now the problem arises when every so often the can actually runs out when I empty it in the tray, throw it away, and go to bed. So then in the morning I hear, honey, you left the fridge open again. I'm like, yeah, did anything spoil? So I came up with this solution where I put these magnetic reed switches that you have normally in alarm systems on top of the fridge. And this one detected the slightest gap, so there was no way of escaping. And for every 30 seconds that the fridge was open, it would beep once. So if it was open for 4 minutes, it would go beep, 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 pretty clearly making sure that you don't forget it open, right? And it worked. I have never, ever left it open since then. But I've also taken this journey of creating my own device to actually try to create it right, create APIs of the device. It could report the weather in the fridge, like humidity and temperature. And it would trigger events so that I could use it somewhere else when it was opened or closed. So for example, if we weren't in the kitchen, somehow ran away very quickly before closing the door, then I could have something react to the door being open long and have a light blink, for example, in the living room so that, oops, I forgot something in the kitchen, I'm gonna go back and do it. And you could, of course, take this to the next step. Have a stove that reports that the burners are still hot. And then you could have a lamp close to the stove that tells your kids, for example, not to touch because it's hot. They probably won't notice the tiny glowing light that you have on your stove. But if there's a big light right next to it, blinking, for example, in red, then they'll know not to touch the stove. So you could consume these APIs very easily to create your own interactions at home. And that's what I was trying to sort of exemplify with this hardware of my own. And then, of course, as Scott Jensen said, most home automation systems are hopelessly rigid, like mine. While they will give a great demo to friends and buddies, they'll go like, yeah, this is so cool. They are unfortunately doomed to fail too often. And I, can only say, sorry, honey, that shouldn't have happened so often, right, before you get kicked out with your gadgets along with you. I would here like to thank my wife for her patience and forgiving with my experiments. I mean, she had to face a lot of these things when things didn't work as they were expected, like my reading lamp that would turn on in the middle of the night and weird things like that. It was motion activated. It should have only turned on when it was bedtime reading. Never mind. So anyway, it was time to move on again. I've tried automation by writing my own rules, but clearly it was a bit too much of a task. There was too many patterns to consider, too many things would have to, align and figure out how that works together. So I thought it's time to add data. And first, this was meant to be a pun, honestly. But then I realized it's actually a much better example than I thought. Because what is data? A machine that learns. He's an AI. And that's exactly what basically the next level for my home automation should be. He's the embodiment of what I need. I want to plug him into my home system and it's done, right? A machine that learns all my habits, that's it. Done, go home. Oh, I'll be home. This is going to be awesome. So, for example, with the scale, there's no automation and learning there, right? You would think. I originally wanted to use the scale to create a day-to-day reflection of the fluctuation of my weight in the bathroom by changing the color of the lamp. I went down or just maintained my weight in green light. I went up in my weight, red light, so I'll always know. But with data, I realized it's not that easy, actually. I measured my weight for, what is this, about half a year. And for one, there's massive fluctuation, which I never knew happened with my weight. I can go up and down 1 kilo in a day, and I have to say here, I always measure the same time of the day and before any input-output happens, so this is, really standard level. There's nothing that happens in between. It's always exactly the same circumstances. So I could use this data to adjust my own diet, my eating habits. I was trying to reach the green line, and then my weight was leveling out with the diet I was following, which is still this 1-6 fasting. So once a week, I almost don't eat all day. I do eat with my kids at home for dinner, but the rest of the day. But then I noticed it was evening out before I reached my goal, so I chopped a bit more for just one day, and it fixed it. Now I'm very, very close to that line, just up and down, but really, really close, so I don't care anymore. So data, yay. Another thing that this scale gave me is that something I wasn't aware of until I really started looking close at the data that I'm receiving from my gadgets, is that it measures the air quality level in my bedroom, which is where I keep my scale. The bathroom will be a bit too humid, and I don't want to ruin electronics, obviously. So the thing I learned from it is that we have a problem. In the middle of the night or close to the morning, we really run out of oxygen, and the CO2 level is going into red. Very dangerous, right? I mean, not that dangerous. We have the door slightly open, so we will survive. But it made me realize that, hey, I could totally use this information to automate something in my house, turn on ventilation, something cool, get some fresh air into the room. Yes, so I started working on gathering even more data so that I can draw more patterns. Well, not me, some machine. I wrote microservices that pulled all the lights to see exactly when the lights are switched and if it's a reaction to something else. For example, the sun goes down, then a light switched on. You can draw parallels, especially if you're a machine that has a lot of processing power. Luckily, I'm not the only one working on this.
Say you have a smart light bulb. It's smart because you can control it from your phone. You can turn it off or on, maybe change the color. That's cool. But add more smart products around the house? And without Nest, getting them to work together practically requires an engineering degree.
Yes.
And what works with one phone might not work with another. Ugh, that's confusing. Shouldn't home automation make life easier? That's why Nest does things differently. You can control Nest products from most smartphones, but they also use sensors and algorithms to learn about you. They're saving energy in millions of homes around the world. They're keeping families safe. They can even let you know when something happens without you having to program them. They also talk to each other. Like when Nest Protect senses carbon monoxide. Your Nest Learning thermostat can automatically turn off your furnace, which might be the culprit. Now with Works with Nest, other products around the house can work the same way. They can take what Nest knows and start doing new things they never could before. So that light bulb can help get your attention when Nest Protect senses smoke, or help scare away intruders if Nest Cam senses someone lurking around. Your dryer can learn from Nest and automatically run the next load when energy demand is low, which could help save on your energy bill. And your door lock can let you know who's there, even if you aren't home to greet them. You probably already own something that works with Nest, and we're adding more every day. Just look for the Works with Nest badge. The more products you have in your home that connect to Nest, the more your home will start to take care of things for you, without you.
Yes. without me. That's the whole point. So the question, because it's the theme of this conference after all, it's alive. Well, is it alive yet? I would say once machine learning is implemented into the home and things start to get smart from themselves, we're really, really close. I mean, the only part that I can think of that's possibly missing from justifying the home being alive is rather than machine learning finding, using pattern recognition and computational learning, it would have an AI maybe. One that actually knows what humans physically need rather than following our patterns and sort of adjusting to that, like trying to get me to go to bed when I'm too tired because it can sense that I'm tired, and thereby changing the temperature of the lamp to sort of more warm lights that mimic sunsets so that your body starts going, yeah, it's really time to hit the sack, even though I was planning to stay up all night, but my house senses that I'm not really in that condition. I should really hit the sack. Now we're going to leave the realms of what I want to do and where I want to go into more of a conceptual, ideal kind of world where I got caught up with a concept that just came out and I can't wait to use. One of those is, who's heard of Google's physical web? You for sure. No? Nobody? Yeah, okay. That's not enough. Good, I'm here. I'm going to help you guys. Basically, the point of Google Physical Web is that we have apps for so many things that we don't need to have apps for, right? Like, why should I be carrying the app for controlling my lights with me all day? Do I really need to adjust my lights when I'm at the office, or know that the washing machine's done, or my scale, or anything really? They're in the wrong context. I should have access to these things when I'm at home. And this is kind of where you can combine beacon technology with sort of local services, connecting software, physical distance proximity with a service. This one doesn't talk, so I'm going to have to keep talking while it's running. But it has, basically, physical web has two main parts. What part one is, as I mentioned, like, I forgot the Google version again. Eddystone, yes, thank you. Eddystone and also iBeacon support this. So basically, the device sends out a URL via Bluetooth, and you can check that on your smartphone. And you receive a URL. Basically, you're accessing a service that's running on that whatever device, and then you can do the interaction that you need, and then that's done. There's nothing left on your phone because you're done. Like this parking meter, why should I have a parking meter app with me when I can just interact with the parking meter and I'm done? I don't need to have anything left on my phone, right? I paid. Go on. Another thing that I sort of started thinking and headed towards, obviously, as Martin mentioned, I'm an trying to be eco guy. I'm as eco as I can viably do. So I was kind of annoyed with adding more and more gadgets and therefore consuming more and more power. Of course, LEDs are awesome because they consume like a tiny fraction of incandescent light bulb, but I have a lot of these things now, so I'm sure it's adding up. So I started looking into how I could have things solar powered. And the previous pet project, I actually bought some solar panels, so now I put them up on the roof and started connecting things. I created that tiny box that's internet connected that has a small battery that starts gathering, energy from the sun. And the part I didn't get to doing is actually connecting the little green wire at the end to things in my home because I didn't feel like wiring my house again. That's the thing I was trying to avoid all along with these new gadgets. I don't want to put wires everywhere. Luckily, somebody else is thinking along these lines. I'm sure those of you following technology closely have heard about harnessing radio frequencies, right? That they started looking into that. And this is the first one I see that is actually getting close to commercially availability. I've seen experiments, I've seen a lot of things, but this one I could actually sign up to for a dev kit. Huh? So in the foreseeable future, I'll have something that will be able to harness a tiny, tiny bit of radio frequency power for free, and then I don't have to plug that device or ever change battery in it, and can hide it in. For example, you could have a wearable that detects air quality. And as you're walking around in a town very polluted, somewhere in China, India, I don't know, somewhere really where it's a hazard, then your jacket could actually warn you on your phone that, hey, you're in a zone that is pretty dangerous. And you don't want to be changing batteries in your jacket and forget to change it, and now you just, inhaled a lot of smoke without having your mask on because you weren't aware. So you could harness these, this kind of power in a lot of places. Also in your home, obviously, you can hide a lot of devices that can measure all sorts of things around your house, like your basement's humidity, so that you don't get mold. It could report once a day, and there's enough power going in just from your radio, your mobile devices talking to each other to power it. Pretty sweet stuff. Another thing I found that is mind-blowing to me is that now they can use radio frequencies also, which we have plenty of, right? Radio frequencies and as their reflection to measure things, like vital signs of a baby, for example. So you have a Wi-Fi router, obviously, in your house, and that sends out signals, and you have an antenna watching the changes in that. And that's enough, with today's technology and precision measurements that we can do, to measure the heartbeat, without actually having to add any meters on your baby and have a special pajama with, some funky gadget mounted on them, giving off radio signals right on the chest of your baby. You don't really want all that, right? In your home, you want to take off all your things. You probably have to put them on a charger anyway, so they're not on you. So why not use something that you already have in your home, which is radio frequencies, to track your vitals, track presence, who's in what room, so that you can turn off lights in empty rooms. And all of this with basically something that we already have, the noise of radio frequencies and wireless signals. Right? Ha! Where is Eric? So a colleague of mine, who I actually happen to name, recently asked me if I have a shrine for this guy at home. And then I decided there's got to be one way. I'm going to find a way to put his face into my presentation just to push his button. So I did. But I actually found something that actually makes sense in the context. And that's basically that he said this during a talk about Tesla, obviously, that his car doesn't need a manual. And if it did, then it would be a broken solution, right? But it's kind of true for IoT devices, smart home even. You shouldn't have to have a manual. It should sort of work almost intuitively, things to talk together. It should just work out of the box. And it shouldn't stop at manuals, obviously. There is something more, which I'll get to in a sec. So we've done a long journey, 40 minutes of a journey, from the past to the present to the future-ish of my smart home and hopefully other device manufacturers and smart homes in general. And I was thinking, what kind of takeaway can I give you that's just one thing that you have to remember to take with you when you're working on this kind of project? And it turns out, I actually found it today. I had something completely different. And then I was looking through my notes that I created a long time ago, and I was like, that's the one. That's the very line. Basically, the essence of the best technology is that it's invisible, right? Not to the eye, obviously, but to your mind. You don't have to think about it. It just works. It does what it's supposed to behind the scenes, helping you, like an automatic door. I mean, we're all completely used to them. We don't think about them. We walk up to them and walk through and keep going. We don't go like, oh, they just opened for me. Wow, that's pretty cool. It's just so awesome. It works as it should. So I thought you could take this with you, create devices, the ones who will be developing it among you, create devices that are invisible, basically, in this sense. And as you who will be consumers, or already are, buy devices that are invisible, that aren't a hassle to use, that actually really make your life easier, so that we get to this nice IoT future and smart homes. So it's time for questions. Any questions? Seriously? No questions? So I talked about interfaces. No interface-related questions? I talked about automation and all sorts of gadgets. No. Physical web, radio frequency technology. What was the thing called when the time was set in all devices? Anybody remember? No? What? Yeah, cool. So how much time do I have left? 20 minutes. Who is really hungry to get that panic food that they're promising in 20 minutes? Put your hand up, it's okay. 1, okay, 2, 4 hungry people, 5, 6. That's not that many, so I can't really just say, all right, we're done, let's go. How about who's interested in what plan B was for the introduction of my speech? Holy shit. Okay. Well then, here is plan B. Plan B, the confession. The confession that approximately a week ago, even though I've been working on this presentation for a month, approximately a week ago I had pretty close to nada, a pile of rubbish, a whole bunch of ideas and random things on paper and in notes in my phone. And I just couldn't get things going, and I didn't know why. Until it was, I think, last Saturday, my family went away. I was at home thinking, okay, I'm gonna start on this. And one of the first things I did, because I was blocked, is I started looking at other interesting things. And then it hit me finally after about half a year in working on this presentation that the problem is that I've been filling my time to the maximum with things that are exciting for me. And obviously, creating this is exciting, but not as exciting as somebody else's news, right? I mean, I've done my stuff. That's not so interesting to me. So I was basically fully optimizing my time to gather as much exciting information from around me as possible. From audiobooks, podcasts, YouTube videos, channels I've subscribed to, audiobooks, and even like little courses on my phone. Every minute of my time was pretty much fully optimized to consume as much exciting news from around the world. I mean, you must admit, today's technology is like on the edge of some massive breakthrough. There's so much exciting stuff going on, it's like hard to keep track. And I was trying to, really hard. I optimized my time so that like prime time TV, no, my prime time is basically when I'm doing exercise, right? Because then more oxygen goes to my head, I can pay more attention. So I was putting podcasts and audiobooks to my jogs so that I could really consume as much as possible. Then that was sort of lower level time when I was commuting. Then I would do little courses, also keep listening to podcasts, do some massive online courses, or learn some Swedish words, all sorts of things, but again, filling up time to the max. And I've done this all the way down to the lowest level. I'm a consultant, maybe I shouldn't admit to this, but I've started on this track, and this is a confession, so I'll just go. So I started doing things even during work, obviously. When I was doing a copy-paste level task that didn't really need my full attention, then I would have a YouTube video playing in the background telling me about the latest space discovery. Not something I can really use in everyday life, but it's super exciting. So I had it playing. And I realized, because of all of this, I had no time for idea generation. I was completely filled up with exciting things, but the only time I would actually have an outlet for things is when I was sitting at the table talking with someone. And then obviously the topic wasn't how is your presentation going and what's the next phase in it. It was something that I just heard that was super exciting. So I had to do a serious turnaround, 180 degree. I removed all the exciting stuff from my life, pretty much, 99%. And I replaced it with music. Not just any music, but music I haven't heard before, this particular playlist, with very simple beats, practically no vocals, so nothing that can trigger a memory in the back of my head and distract me off of a tangent from what I was trying to focus on, which was this presentation. And this is how, basically, in 1 week, I don't know if it was very good, probably pretty rough around the edges, but this is how in 1 week I managed to get this presentation together. So the moral of the story is, I must find a balance. And talking about balance, the only thing that came to my mind is this Swedish proverb. I don't know if you know it. Varann and vatten. I was told this when I was at a party. Oh, those of you who don't speak English, it means every other water. So it's obviously related to alcohol consumption. Good advice for later today at the after party. So at this party, I was told that I was consuming a lot of the same kind of thing, and it was time for some water to even things out. And this kind of is right on with my problem. I was consuming too much of the exciting stuff, the mind-intoxicating new ideas. I didn't leave any time for clarity, to let it settle, to turn into ideas. And with that, I'm going to give you time to turn this into ideas. The end.